Good morning, everyone. Please be seated, please. It's such a pleasure to welcome you all here today at the beginning of what will obviously for me is a very special day, but also hopefully for Dal and for our whole community. With us this morning are 8 very distinguished leaders from universities around the world. They are visionaries and pioneers. They're people who found innovative ways to respond to challenges facing modern universities. I think that great universities combine the local with the global. They take the best of the knowledge developed locally in our own regions and take it to the world. And they take the best of the disciplines, which are academic disciplines, which of course are global, and translate those into real impact in their communities. So as we were thinking about the installation and thinking about that mix of global and local, well, we thought, what better way to kind of launch and get this installation day going than to invite 8 distinguished leaders from around the world to talk about that link between the local and global, but also to talk about those challenges and opportunities facing post-secondary education, because the opportunities and challenges are very similar really across the world, whether it's strain on public finances or questions about the role of technology, how we can better impact our communities, and so on. So it just gives me such great pleasure, and I thank you for being here today, and thank you to all of our guests. Of course, this is all, I think, for me, part and parcel of 100 Days of Listening, which is my continued endeavors to better learn and understand Dalhousie, to meet with all the faculty, staff, and students, to meet with external partners, to develop a deeper understanding of the institution and start to define together what are the handful of things that we want to focus on in the years ahead. It's been, as I draw closer to the end of these 100 days, it's very exciting for me to be able to listen to the views of our guests of such a range of distinguished experts. Moderating our discussion today will be our Vice President Research, our esteemed Dr. Martha Crago. And I'm so grateful and thankful to her and her team for providing us with this wonderful opportunity this morning. So to introduce our guests and to launch things off, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Martha Crago.
Thank you very much, Richard. So ladies, gentlemen, students, colleagues, and friends, today we have the opportunity to consider the future of universities with leaders of universities from around the world. Each of our panel members comes from a university like ours that has its own particular historical and local context and its own mission. However, we're all joined in a global pursuit, the pursuit of creating new knowledge and the pursuit of imparting knowledge to future generations. So today we're here together to consider how best to envision and enact our own and our collective futures. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the support and partnership that we had from the Royal Society of Canada for this event. And now it's my very great pleasure to introduce to you a set of panel members and the guests, the honored guests of Dalhousie University. They are, from left to right, Dr. Bojosi Otahile from Botswana, from the University of Botswana. Dr. Joachim Clotet Marti, the president of the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. And next to him is Dr. Xu Qiu-hong, the past president of Peking University in China. And next to him, Dr. Gerard Fouquet from Christian Albrechts University in Kiel, Germany. And here is Dr. Marie-Christine de Mardelet from the Nouvelle Sorbonne. She's the president of that university, otherwise known as Paris III in France. And Dr. Rivka Karmi, the president of Ben Gurion University of the Negev from Israel. Dr. Sheikha Al-Miznad, president of the University of Qatar from Qatar. And finally, Dr. Eric L. Grimson, the chancellor of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's our best guess that the insights from this group of university presidents from around the world are bound to stimulate questions from our audience. So after a more formal part of the panel discussion, we will open up the floor to you. If you're participating here in the Dalhousie Arts Center, you were given a question card as you entered. If you write your question on it and hold it in the air, an usher will come and collect it from you and deliver it to one of our student leaders who will present the question to the panel on your behalf. A similar process will be used for those of you who are on our agricultural campus in Truro. Please complete your question card, pass it to one of your on-site organizers, and they in turn will convey it to a student leader. We're also taking questions from anyone, anywhere who is listening by webcast. And your questions can be mailed to dalasks@dal.ca. So that's Dal, A-S-K-S, one word, at dal.ca. So we're going to begin now. And for this question, we're going to go exactly in the order of these countries. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret here that reveals how well we know our alphabet. We were explicitly told that these people were to sit in alphabetical order by their country. But I leave it all to you to guess where one mistake was made. So these two people should be in the opposite seats. So we'll begin with Botswana, and this is a double question. And the double question is, what is the single accomplishment that you are most proud of that you achieved as a senior administrator? And two, what is the thing that keeps you awake at night related to your university? So we'll begin with our president from Botswana.
Thank you very much, and good morning, colleagues. I guess it's not easy, really, to say what the single accomplishment one is proud of. Building a university is like perhaps making a jigsaw. Every piece matters, and every piece must be taken into account. However, if I have my back to the wall, I perhaps would say internationalization and partnerships was perhaps the most single important accomplishment of my period of the 8 years as Vice Chancellor of the University of Botswana. Traditionally, we have always looked either to Europe or the US for partnerships and assistance, but in the mid-2000s, we deliberately decided to turn and look elsewhere, more importantly to Canada, Asia, Far East, and to some great extent, especially in certain areas, to Australia. But this was a deliberate decision. Our view, and we strongly believe this, is that these countries or shores is where the next wave of intellectual leadership is going to come from. China, South Korea, and Malaysia have already indicated that they are no longer the global providers of international students. They have now become the global destination of international students. And we wanted to be there with them at that time. Now, what keeps me awake at night? Certainly, I think, a rickety bed. But I think for the university, there's one major item, human capital. We are a small country, a young university. We have, over the years, tried to build it and build its reputation. But what makes it a good university is not only the infrastructure and the buildings that we have in the institution. It is the attraction of young talent and indeed good human capital. It is good human capital, especially the faculty, that attracts young talent. And therefore, as a young and small university, for us to attract this capital, we have to compete with the whole of the Commonwealth, and indeed the rest of the English-speaking world. And that was not an easy task. And I think that is the beginning of the nightmare. Thank you.
Now, President Clotet.
Good morning to everybody. For me, for a senior administration, and accomplishment at the university, I would say that the university internationalization project, which is becoming very successful. In other words, international mobility of students and academic staff and joint research projects. As you can imagine, we encourage all of our students at every level to see the problems of the moment in their larger geographical, historical, and intellectual context, and to become a part of it. Moreover, our students learn about the world and the students from other countries. Certainly, internationalization helps the students engage in the world, locally and globally, as responsible citizens committed to public purposes and ready to help solve complex problems with rigor and imagination by using their knowledge to advance the well-being of people in the world. In my opinion, internationalization is not about recruiting wealthy foreigners to subsidize the education of local students. Internationalization also means mobility and to establish a network of universities, teaching and doing research cooperatively. On the other hand, internationalization improves the human condition in ways that universities are uniquely well positioned to do. Regarding Brazil and our university, let me say that we have more than 31 active agreements with universities in more than 10 countries. Brazil has a program called Science Without Borders, which will highly contribute for the increment of the quality of students and the increase of the development of Brazil as a nation. As a philosopher, let me say that how important is to recognize that the roots of internationalization go back to thinkers such as Socrates and Cicero in ancient times, to Francis Bacon in the era of empiricism, and in the 20th century to the philosopher of communication theory, Marshall McLuhan. The early philosophers described men as world citizens. McLuhan, on the other hand, states that the independence created by the electronic media has generated a new image of the world as a global village, thus confirming a breaking of frontiers and the universality of the inhabitants of the planet Earth. As to the second question, I would say that there are indeed many issues that generate tension in the position I have. Partly because the President faces different complex and unpredictable situations that demand much balance and parsimony to be solved. Among them, we may include those related to the economical financial situation and the consequent decision of defining the priorities to be followed. The continuous attention given to innovations in the intertwined teaching, research and extension with a focus on developing the community internal to our institution, as well the external community, involving our city, our states, and our country. Over the past 10 years, one of the greatest challenges has been internationalization, and especially generating new opportunities for our students and the students we receive from other countries, what we call student mobility. As a result, we include the need for our students to master foreign languages, especially English, and increase reciprocity to offer more courses in English, both at the undergraduate and graduate levels, and Portuguese as a foreign language for our international students. I would like to emphasize, in particular, people management, teamwork, such that it may be disseminated among the administrators of the institution in order to motivate their teams to work for the benefit of a solid, just, and fraternal human education.
Good. And our president from the University of Beijing. And now it's your turn.
Good morning, everybody. I just very briefly answered the question last time. I thought how to answer the question, do some homework. I think for me, because I served as president of Peking University for 9 years. In China, it's really quite long, especially for Peking University president. It's really a very difficult position in China because the government pay more attention to university, the society, and the professor and the students at university. Also, they open their eyes to see the president what you did. But anyway, in the 9 years of my service, I still feel quite happy because I love my students of Peking University. I think this, for most police scenes for me, the every early June, when thousands of students graduated from university and left the campus and find a good job or pursue their further degree, it's really make me very, very happy and pleased them. Also, every early September, the thousands of excellent fresh students come to the university campus from all provinces of China and the world, make the university campus more active, and the people can work, study, live together. I think it's make the university always very fresh. It's for me, it's very happy to see, but certainly have bad things. I remember when I finished my job as a university president, the media journalist asked me, Professor Xu, did you have some night you couldn't sleep? I said, of course, I did. When you find some excellent professor would like leave the university due to we couldn't provide proper working condition, not enough space, not good facility or budgets, really make me very sad. Or sometimes excellent students, due to different reasons, for example, suicide, or died with accident, something quite even very fair cases, very, very rare cases, but still usually happened in China. For those days, really, I couldn't sleep well. I also mentioned to the journalists, but of course I couldn't wake every night if you consider I served the president 9 years. So I hope new president here, also a lot of leadership at university here, we still need happy, we need optimistic. Even we face challenges, difficulties, problems every day, but we should find, eventually we can find the solving the problems. The world should become better and better.
President Fouquet.
First of all, I would like to say good morning to all of you and thank you for the invitation to Dal. I'm in fact a medieval scholar with a background more in ancient Greek and Latin than modern languages. So to help me today, I have brought some notes. Now, to the single achievement which pleases me the most. In the course of my presidency, I have fostered the development of our rather small but highly differentiated Kiel University into a comprehensive university of interconnecting and interacting academic cultures. This took shape around 4 research foci of international visibility. We now concentrate on the future ocean in our marine sciences like Dell, and we have a wonderful cooperation. We investigate inflammation research and environmental genomics in life science. We analyze the interaction of societal, cultural, and environmental change using pre-industrial societies as models. And in our 4th focus, we open an arena for nano and surface sciences. With this new concept, we now tackle problems on a top research level with a high impact on society and on our region. And as a small and rather remote university in the north of Germany, we have become one of the top German research universities. As to the second question, to be honest, I sleep really well, but what concerns me about universities in Germany and my university in Kiel is the basic structure of German research system. Since the late 19th century, Germany has developed a system of huge and important research conglomerates, like the Max-Planck-Gesellschaft, Helmholtz Association, and so on. This has led, on the one hand, to outstanding partnerships, as with GEOMA Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research, Kiel, and on the other hand, to an imbalance to funding between research universities like mine and these important partners. My concern is that this imbalance could lead to the universities losing their ability to contribute to international top-level research. This worries me because I'm convinced that the university is the bastion of freedom, innovation, and creativity in the research and teaching process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from the Sorbonne Nouvelle, I'm very much aware that universities that are solely humanities-based come under constant pressure to prove, to demonstrate that first they are financially viable, and also to convince society at large that there is a direct link between what we teach and what we research on and employability. So by actively promoting a modern image of the humanities and social sciences and funding both new interdisciplinary projects, research projects, and innovative teaching and learning programs, my university, Sorbonne Nouvelle, has demonstrated the vital societal impact that comes with a deep understanding of the humanities. And I must say, I'm proud to say that since 2008, our student population has increased by 7%, and our off-campus student population also has increased by 70%. Another thing I'm quite proud of, I can say, is the fact that in France, as odd as it may seem, student life has not been high on university agendas. Still today, many consider that a student should spend his days either in the lecture hall or amongst the dusty shelves of the university library. Well, it's not exactly the way students see themselves as autonomous, free-thinking adults, and they tend to be of another persuasion. So our university actively encourages students to participate in university life, from being members of student societies to participating in decision-making processes as members of the university's councils and committees. We're currently drawing up a strategic plan for the development of student life. And experience teaches us that socially engaged students become high-achieving graduates with increased employability. One thing I want to add is that since 2008, I have completely restructured my universities 15 university departments have been restructured into 3 academic divisions, and provision has been overhauled through the streamlining of services. Now, like my colleague from Kiel, I'm fortunate to be a very good sleeper. I must say it aggravates most of my friends and colleagues because they keep asking me, aren't you too tired? And I say, no, I sleep very well, thank you. However, I have to confess, and I hope you won't tell anybody, that sometimes realizing that I sent an email with a spelling mistake or a missing punctuation mark can wake me up in a sweat.
Thank you, Marta. Well, one very significant achievement and accomplishment that I consider is the fact that we have managed during the past 4 or 5 years to expand and deepen the impact of our university on the whole region of the Negev. The Negev region in Israel comprises about 2/3 of Israel landmass and only less than 10% of the population of this country. It has a lot of new immigrants coming up from all over the world and a relatively large population of Bedouin Arabs. So the challenge is really huge. And we have managed to team up for a real partnership with the city, the municipality, the government, and private sector to bring about some very major changes in the region. So both to boost its economy, but also to make sure that our graduates actually remain in the Negev. We have voted for now over 5 years as the best undergraduate campus in Israel. Students like us and they love to study at Ben-Gurion University, but then upon graduation, they move to the center of Israel because of lack of high-quality jobs in the region. So we made sure that we provide for those good jobs in order for them to stay there as a national role to inhabit this scarcely populated region. So just recently, we have inaugurated the new Advanced Technology Park, High Tech and Biotech Park, which lies very adjacent to the university and actually build on the research capacities of our universities in the sciences and technologies. We've just inaugurated the first building that is housing major high-tech and biotech companies, and we are there to really develop a very big, large park. We have formed consortia with government and private sectors, private investors on renewable energy and water technologies, 2 areas and topics that we are very strong at. Again, to boost the economy of the region, but not only the region. Nowadays, it's actually the country. We have embarked upon a project to revive the old city and several neighborhoods around the university, which are of very low socioeconomical status, by mobilizing students. Our students are very much community-oriented, and mobilizing them to both live in those neighborhoods free of rent in exchange of doing all kinds of projects in the community, including cultural projects all over the city. So this is something which is of great interest and much importance to us in terms of really providing this region with a robust kind of both economy and culture. But if I'm proud about one achievement, actually, is the fact that I managed to bring the issue of promoting women in the academia onto the national level by heading a national committee that came with various recommendations that are, as I speak, being implemented in all higher education institutions in Israel in a very structured way. I think one of the first projects in the world, first such projects in the world. well, I'm blessed, like my two colleagues, with having a very good night's sleep. My mother always used to say that my conscience is very clear. This is why anyway. But last year, I have to admit, I didn't sleep well. We have a very, very challenging episode, long one rather, where we were threatened with a very significant interference with academic freedom brought about by a decision by the Council of Higher Education of threatening to shut down one of our departments because allegedly their curriculum were not well balanced politically. We were fighting it for over a year, and you can find all details in the internet if you go into the publications of the Chronicle of Higher Education and various petitions that were signed all over the world. So this issue, which thank God was resolved, but still is hanging there as a very, I would say, threatening cloud over the university, and I would say the whole university system in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Good morning, everyone. I think I want to make 2 points. First, I think achievement normally does not belong to a person. Normally, it's a team job, especially in higher education. And the other point, that achievement is not final, because in education, whenever you reach a step, there is another 10 steps ahead of you you have to reach. But I think here I will reflect my experience. I'm coming from Qatar. I don't know if all of you know about Qatar. Qatar is really a small country in the Arabian Gulf. We are blessed with economic resources, but small size population. When I get my position as a president in 2003, I came with a mission, or I was given the mandate to reform the university. The university was very traditional, typical of an Arab university, treated as government department, and there is lots of issue with it. So I started, and the first thing I did is building the team, because you cannot work alone. And has been, although it was the most difficult period of my career, but also it was the most excited one. We started actually from zero. It would have been easier if we asked to build a new university, rather change one which does exist. So it was really very difficult. We have to start from zero. We start from getting the autonomy from the university, putting the bylaws, the policies, the procedures, academic policies, HR policies. I mean, really from starting like this. It was not easy, it was tough. We faced with a lot of resistance from within the university and from the community as well. And I remember during the first years, my mother, one time she told me, "What are you doing? Every house I go to, they are complaining about you." And I told her, "Don't worry, what I'm doing is right. I'm not doing anything against God's wish." Because I know if I try to explain to her, she will not understand why I'm making people's life difficult, where I can make it easy. And I remember the first year also, we asked about 1,000 students to leave the university because of academic standard. Also, we raised the academic standard. It was, basically anybody get in can get out. Anyway, it has been long, difficult last 10 years, but we manage now. We have a university which our graduates are respected in the labor market, where we have a PhD, we have master degree, we have nearly 30% of our program, which has an international accreditation body accredited internationally. The rest have to do like some kind of a quality assurance. Our research portfolio now is really large. We have research centers. This is what's come to my mind. So it was really transforming that place. If I need to answer the question of I'm also like my lady's friend. Thank God I sleep at night. But really I'm always concerned about the fact that we live in a blessed society with economic resources, small population. I'm always thinking how we can motivate our youth, because I think in my country, lots of young people, or all the national population, look at things as entitlement, not like an opportunity. You need to take advantage of it and work hard on it. So we always have this how to balance between lack of motivation with really making the student reach the standard and have an aspiration for a competitive future. So, and that's creates lots of social pressure. The social pressure is still there, although we have been now, I think, doing that for the last 11 years or 12 years. But there is always social pressure. And I don't think there is no university, you know, of who their news is the front page in the newspaper every day. Whatever we did, we didn't do that. Even if we ask a student to leave, it's the next day in the newspaper. So it is very tough to live all the time with that kind of pressure. My other concern is, I don't know, I'm sure this is in every president's mind, is that I always pray to God that my successor will be strong enough in order to face that culture and that setting of mind and be able to always to resent the social pressure, which sometimes might lead to the political pressure, to ease things out and to not go. You live in a comfortable society. Why you want to bother and why you want to push people to work hard? I think that's what I want to say.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. And Richard, I can't resist noting, I think we have half the population of Saskatchewan on this platform here tonight. I'm going to pick an accomplishment I'm cheating because it's underway. You can decide in a few years whether it's an accomplishment. But the thing I am most pleased about is being able to work with Raphael Reif and others at MIT to launch MITx 2 years ago and then partner with Harvard to launch edX and bring about what I think will be a transformative revolution in higher education around the use of online tools. It's important to stress the MOOCs get all of the attention, but for us at MIT, this was partly to provide access to high-quality education anywhere, anytime. But it was equally important that we strengthen the residential experience of our students by providing immediate feedback, assessment of mastery of material, learning communities, and freedom to pick paths, if you like, through the curriculum. And in fact, we created a new term called a SPOC, S-P-O-C. It's a small private online course because we are as focused on what happens to our students as we are what happens outside. And finally, we think that this is an opportunity to really learn about learning. When you mine the massive data available in an online course, you can run a range of experiments. You can mine things to understand, are we teaching well? And ultimately, that's what we should be doing. Richard, again for you, what keeps me awake at night? Well, I'm worried there's a gender issue going here because these ladies all apparently sleep really well. Richard, for me, it's everything. But actually, my single biggest worry is student well-being. A campus full of 18 to 22-year-olds or even 25-year-olds is a potentially volatile mix. They're still maturing personally. They're still growing intellectually. They believe they're impervious and indestructible, so they take risks. Some of those risks are crucial. You need to take intellectual risks to grow. But some of them are much more worrisome. So when I say they're important, it's both intellectual and personal growth. You want students to feel the strength to go start a new enterprise or challenge conventional wisdom or find a new way to think about things. But the risks that worry me are the personal ones. Some of my students, unfortunately, think they are sufficiently skilled at biochemistry that they know what they can properly ingest and still survive. And that's a polite way of saying they take risks that worry me. And we want to find, I think, as administrators, a way to encourage students to find a path that doesn't squelch intellectual risk-taking, but does try and provide guidance about what personal risk-taking should be.
Good. Thank you very much, all of you. So this has given us a wonderful start to what will now be some questions that we considered more fundamental in nature, although I must say I think we've hit a lot of fundamental issues here already. And these ones I'm going to name particular people to answer them. So this first one, I'm going to call upon President Zhu Young, President Marie-Christine Lamardelet, and Eric Grimson again. And this is, question is, what does a university need to do to establish itself as an international leader? And we'll begin with China.
It's a really big question. I think for university, I think 3 parts very, very important according to my experience. One is the professor. You should attract and enroll the best professor and the teachers. The second one is the students. You have to find those elite students. They can pursue their future and wish. Then the third one, you should have an excellent management system. For example, you take China, our university as an example. If we want to become internationalized, we should get best professors and the teachers from the world. So at the moment, we, in the past, I think 20 years of Peking University, actually we get at the moment about 1/3 faculty director from the outside of China. Even those another 1/3 faculty, they have a lot of link with Peking University. They used to be the undergraduate student or PhD student of our university, but they also have a year's experience working in the foreign labs or foreign universities. So that makes the university faculty level have a lot of link with different countries. The second one is for students. In China, actually, students want to go into the best university, a lot were competitive. Even among the university in China, they are very competitive for find the best students. But what is the really best students? If we just according to credit, or other can judge the students. When in China, for most universities, still we need to accumulate more experience. But anyway, it's very important things. For in China, I think at the moment, it's a very important thing how to improve our management system. Because in China, most universities are public, the state government or provincial government managed. We still get quite a lot of influences controlled by the government. But the university should be more autonomy. So in this case, we need to improve the management systems. Then also, I think active international exchange and collaborative program is very important if we want to become international leaders. So that's why we really pay more attention in the past 20 years to stimulate professors, get more international collaboration. Also, a lot of very active undergraduate student exchange program, just to make the teachers, especially for students, have a nurture global vision. Since I think today, any country couldn't survive or living without outside. We are living in the same global village, so we need contact, know each other, understand each other. That's very challenging for our teachers and students. We couldn't isolate with the outside. So in this case, I think that for university leadership, really need to do more for this, pursue such an internationalization. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
I think initially I was going to say, what do we need? We need money. But more seriously, I think what we need to do is to know how to balance traditional academic disciplines with emerging fields of study, and to demonstrate our ability to understand shifting societal trends, to anticipate changing societal needs, but also without falling into the trap of responding solely to fickle fashions. I think the role of the university is to maintain this constant distance between thinking and reality. Also, increasing international cooperation is what it's all about, and I think the simple fact that we're here shows that Dalhousie University and the new president are very much aware of this. It's all about being global, that is to say global and local, offering students and researchers from all over the world the opportunity to experience at first hand what local societies and communities have to offer. And I think this contact with local reality and universal thinking breeds open-mindedness, the driving force behind intellectual strength.
Lovely.
I think my comments are I hope, going to weave the two previous comments together, because I think we share some perspectives. The question is, what does the university need to do to establish itself as an international leader? And I'm going to start by saying I think in today's environment it is exceedingly hard to do that across the board, to compete with a Harvard, a Cambridge, and Oxford, I hope an MIT. It's hard to do it across the board. But I think there is a path to international leadership that is available to universities in targeted areas, and I'm going to pick up on my colleagues' comments here. So, 3 elements. I think the first is to identify a local resource that is unique or nearly so. Something that, for example, could be based on local industry, could be agriculture, here in Halifax, oceans and fisheries, hydroelectric production. Pick something that also could be based around a local cluster of innovators, biotech, video games, electronics, whatever is something accessible to the local situation that provides a competitive advantage. And I think the second thing is to use that then to define both a research and an education focus and to target resources to build the critical mass. And for a university president, this is hard because you have to cover a range of areas. You have a responsibility, especially if you are a public institution, but you can't cover everything. So I think you pick that local target and then you use your resources to really try and build critical mass in that particular opportunity. I'm going to apologize for using another American example, but Caltech, in my mind, does this extremely well. They are not superb at everything, but what they do really well because they focus on where's that local opportunity. And then the last one, again, is global, as we heard from the 2 previous comments. Build international partnerships, find sister institutions that share a similar niche, and work to create synergistic collaborations. I would really encourage, as my colleagues have said, exchange of ideas, exchange of faculty, exchange of students. Students can often be tremendous transport mechanisms at taking ideas, cultures, perspectives, and moving them back and forth. And finally, look for industrial partners that can work with you on this, and not just for the funding, which is important, but also for differences of perspective. But I think if you can identify a local opportunity, you can figure out how to build international partners around it, and you can make the hard decisions to focus on those things where you have that opportunity. You can be an international leader in those areas.
Good. Thank you very much to all of you. For the next question I'm going to call on Vice Chancellor Otalhile, President Joachim Clotet, and President Rifa Karmi. And this question, and it touches what we've heard, so now you'll hear a slightly different perspective on it. This question is, how can a university better achieve both its global and its local missions, increasing its global impact while also catalyzing the economic, intellectual, and cultural development of its home region? So we'll begin with Botswana.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think the issue that we faced especially in Southern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa over the past 30 years is that universities were really struggling for survival. The emphasis was on basic education and very little going into higher education. So as a result, it is only in the past decade that we are seeing more emphasis being placed on higher education and on universities as social institutions. Therefore, we are still at a stage where we had to strike a balance between providing that which the university is established to do, provide service to the society in which it operates. But at the same time, we cannot even afford not to be taken seriously by the international community. So that balance creates a problem in terms of what you as the Vice Chancellor or University President should do. So at a local level, and I think the last speaker has already mentioned it, you try to focus on one or two areas where you think you have a niche, you have at least an opportunity not only to galvanize and be able to organize both the funding, the personnel, and indeed the support locally, but at the same time, something that can have an impact within the community. For us, as a country in Botswana, we decided to focus on the wetlands, and especially the unique wetland that we have as a delta. And therefore, the focus was on establishment and development of the Okavango Research Institute. So you can find something locally that can have an impact, and both the government and people can see is very important. The second issue that I would like to raise is that, again, to have that international play and have that impact, again, turn to your partners. They provide the necessary scholarship that we may not have locally. They are likely to have access to resources that we may not be able to master locally, and that will become very important as we go on. But for us in Botswana, as the only university, our region was a national one. It's not a province, it's not a state, but the country at large. And therefore, that again is an added burden that university has to carry. But I think other universities have better models. We have more universities than we do in our own countries. But at the same time, University of Botswana still aspires to be an international player and to be a center of academic excellence in Africa and the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you.
The university, undoubtedly, is deeply committed to its home region to ensure that everyone, regardless of their race, ethnicity, religion, or gender, has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. The university is at the service of society and must contribute to its development. In order to reach this goal, it's necessary to be familiar with the social and industrial reality, including health, its limitations and strengths, both the regional and provincial spheres where the university is located. To this end, undergraduates and graduates must accept responsibility, not only for their own development, but also for the collective development of society. It is relevant for them to see the challenges in their home region as a challenge they should face. Consequently, the university must foster interdisciplinary work internally and collaborate broadly with the external realm. Higher education is compelled to open its doors to the broad base of society which the university aims to serve with its research and training. To put it schematically, it is incomprehensible today to think of a university without a commitment with society. Thank you.
Thank you. President Carmi.
Well, in a way, I'm going to repeat my MIT colleague assertions about the issue, only in a certainly much heavier accent. I think the main idea is to really identify and define your own strengths and advantages. I'm talking from the standpoint of a very young university, only 44 years old, which need to be very effective and which is still caring mostly for the local, however wants to go global. So identifying what are the real strengths, both in research and teaching, and what are the most attractive topics and issues that both deal with the local needs, but also can cater and can attract the international interest on both faculties, students, and what I think even more important, on the level of management of universities. So if I can say something about my own experience, or our own experience in latter years, is that obviously we have identified the strengths that had to do with the mandate of our university to spearhead the development of the region of the Negev. So it started with solar energy, but then developed into alternative renewable energy in general. Water technologies that started with looking how to purify, how to use very state-of-the-art kind of membranes to purify water, and later on go to nanotechnology, use it as a tool for that purpose. Agriculture, first in desert land, but thereafter caring for the environment in general. So all those ideas actually are very much appealing to the world at large. And so creating research collaborations with leading universities. Just last year, we had two very large research collaboration projects coming up, where you don't only mobilize your students, but also invest money in these kinds of collaborations, and therefore then get an international recognition. Having your students, either exchange students or foreign students, again, around those themes that are very much attractive to such students. Obviously, most of them are coming from developing world, so it is not a resource of income to the university, but rather strengthening the core research of the institution. And then international collaboration, international conferences, international competition of students, and I'm so much agree with the idea that the student body can be very, very instrumental in really promoting your ideas about going global. I mean, they have their own peers all over the world, and especially in those areas that you want to strengthen in order to make a change in your own community, so it happens that it can really make a change in the global community. So identify, looking into your strengths and advantages, and bring them from the local to the global.
Wonderful. I'm standing up here getting full of ideas, so this is really very stimulating. Yeah, good. All right, the next three presidents, President Gerard Fouquet, President Sheikha Al-Misnad, and Chancellor Grimson. The question for you is, if there was such a thing as a global university in the future, what would it look like?
Thank you for this difficult question. What are you dreaming of? A mega campus orbiting Earth? A stargate into knowledge? I do not believe in such visions. Universities live through personal interaction and reliable relationships. I would therefore stress the contrary. The university of the future needs a certain smallness. It is our individuality that engages our researchers and students. But of course, the global perspective is still vital. The global perspective is where we find our challenges. It is where our students are to engage. It is the sphere of strategic partnerships with other research universities, and it is the scope by which our results are measured. I cannot speak for the top universities like MIT. I imagine you, dear colleague Grimson, will not break with tradition, as you might risk losing your strong individual identity. I speak now for what I call the second-tier universities. These research universities of proven top quality will join forces by forming close-knit networks, as they are internationally active and innovative, but too small on their own to have an impact on or to challenge the predominance of the top players. It may well be that they will intensify collaborations in research and teaching. They might share facilities and infrastructures and harmonize their curricula. They could even offer joint degrees and adopt shared principles and values. Such networks would offer the chance to bring the best researchers together, to cluster expertise and to pool resources in order to push interdisciplinary research forward. Through such direct and long-term cooperations, proven quality would be ensured, along with a physical presence in many countries around the world and the strong local links resulting from that. This is one vision, but it is, I have to confess, an optimistic outlook on the future. To make it real, we would have to overcome national idiosyncrasies. And above all, this vision can only be realized in a peaceful world, where sharing knowledge is a common good and enjoyed by everyone.
Thank you.
I think when we talk about globalization and universities, if we go back, and I think universities by its own nature is a global. I mean, universities started when a group of scholars meet together, travel around, gather information, and trying to rediscover human knowledge which is accumulated through civilization and add to that. The new concept, I think the difference between that concept of globalization and the new concept, I think the new concept is more based on business model, revenue, competition, money-driven. But I'm getting out of the question, but the question is, is there a global university or what is a global university? Yes, conceptually there might be something what we call global university, like, I mean, now universities, the online courses, the portal for dissemination of information, branch campuses outside, off-site center, having more international students in campus, having an international faculty. This is all could be considered like aspect of globalization. And of course, it will have its own challenge, like quality, the business model, accreditation, all of that. But I think globalization should not be an aim. Globalization is a terminology which suddenly became there, and everybody trying to relate to it. It should not. Globalization is a process. It's how the university are influenced what's happening. It should not be an aim, I think, for university to be global, unless it's identify what does global mean to that particular universities. So yes, there is aspect of, we can call it globalization within a university setting. But to be frank with you, I don't have a clear picture of how a global university will look like in the future. I don't know if this is an answer or not.
No, I think it's an answer.
I love this question.
I thought you would.
Thank you, Martha. It's something we at MIT have been debating for many years, and President Fouquet, I hear your concern. I'm hoping I can alleviate some of it. In my view, a vision of a global university of the future is it will be a distributed one. As the sophistication of digital online tools grows, as our students themselves become more global and understand they want those perspectives, and as social media and interconnection venues expand, imagine the following setting. Imagine a setting in which a student can take a cutting-edge computer science class from MIT or Stanford, which is second tier. And I'm now in deep trouble with my colleagues at Stanford, but let me start again. Imagine a setting in which a student can take a cutting-edge computer science class from MIT. a mathematics class from Chicago, communication theory classes from ATH, economics classes taught jointly by faculty from the London School of Economics, from Stanford, and from Harvard, finance classes from Oxford, sociology classes from Toronto, all while working within a local learning community of peers in Halifax or Truro. In such a setting, students would be able to take classes from the world's best anywhere, anytime. But before the faculty all start throwing things at me, this does not mean you're out of a job. Because I think every institution of higher learning then has an opportunity to bring back in the local expertise, to put the local color, to put the local flavor around it. So flipping the classroom should enable faculty to focus on active learning, group problem-solving exercises, amplification of foundational material with practical explorations, and especially leading the dialogue in that local community about where that matters. I know I'm taking too long, Martha, but let me give you one example, if I may. Imagine teaching a class on climate change, where the lectures may come from North America, but in a local setting, you're having a debate about what does that mean in your context. Imagine doing it where, in fact, the connections are both students in your setting and students globally. It's a wonderful opportunity for dialogue. So, will it be disruptive? Yes. But I think the experience of a student in such a global institution, being able to take the best from the best anywhere, anytime, yet have that opportunity for the personal interaction with a local faculty member, could really be transformative for the student.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll call on Vice Chancellor Otohile and President Xu Zhuang and President Marie-Christine Lamar-Delay. And the question is, what will be the challenges and opportunities associated with meeting the needs of the future, and how will technology impact learning of the next decade? And I think Eric Grimson, has some kind of magic sight, so he saw part of that question. All right, so we'll start with Botswana and the perspective from that part of the world.
I'm going to sound a little bit negative on this question. The positive has already been given by Chancellor Grimson. The first thing that I would like to point out is that, to me, technology is going to be both a challenge and an opportunity. We are already witnessing in today's students that our students spend more time on social networks than actually looking at the university texts. Nothing wrong with it, but again, this gives us opportunity as academics and as university leaders to think very hard on how we are going to package knowledge for the next generation of students. And at the same time, think very hard of what it is that we are going to accept as academic work. It is a generation that is merging of cut and paste. But more importantly, it's a generation that thinks reliance on technology can and will replace a campus experience. In my view, that perhaps is the wrong way of looking at what is going to happen in the future. Technology will be an enabler, but in my view, will not replace campus experience. What is required of us is to blend the technology that we have in the campus experience that is available in all our universities. In a country like Botswana, where most of, or if perhaps accessible number of our students have dependents that they have to look after, especially siblings, is a result of the devastation of HIV/AIDS. Technology allows those students to carry on with their studies and at the same time providing the necessary care and support to their siblings wherever they are. So that to me is a plus. However, I harbor some fears, and again born out of experience out of Southern Africa and Africa at large, that increasingly the governments are becoming interested in what is going on within the social networks, especially in the aftermath of the so-called Arab Spring. If you look at last year and this year's figures of how many requests our governments have actually made to the social network providers on personal details of the users, you then start fearing that perhaps technology being used efficiently and effectively in the learning process might start being targeted by the governments who are already the major controllers of telecommunications in our own countries. And if that happens, and they start restricting and controlling access, I think then we'll have a serious problem, and the backlash will then impact and adversely affect the learning process in our countries. Thank you.
I think such challenges normally, I think, present as same time with the opportunities. I think for students of the future, they face the challenge, such a challenge actually faced by our human being, especially from those issues like population, food security, health, environment, and climate changes, etc. We human beings face those challenges actually for students in the future, of the future. They face how to solve those problems. It's a very complicated issues. So we should provide students of the future. Let them know, learn how to solve these problems human beings faced. Since such a problem, not easy to solve, not for single major can solve those problems. So most universities I know now they stimulate the multidisciplinary study. So such of things are also very important for students. We should help them get such sort of strong background for multidisciplinary studies. The second one, I think, for the students of the future. Since today's students, they move in the world, in different countries, different universities. The students meet challenges. They have to know different culture and different civilization. They should nurture the global visions. It's also very important because today's quite lot of students become really international students. They should learn each other and work together. And I think we should help them to get such a capacity. And if they can do that, then we can solve those big problems, big issues our human being faced. But also about the technology impact for learning in the next factor. Also, it's a big issue. The technology develops so rapidly. Sometimes I found that the students, they lost the way, lost the target. They, in our university, certainly a lot of students, they have a good capacity, good, for computer, even much better than professors. But how to really efficiently use those new technology for learning, it's a big problem. Because today's like I'm a biologist, every day we produce so many data, DNA sequence, protein structure, for students, how to use those new technology to help their learning, and how to get really useful information from the mass data in the computer. Otherwise, they every day very busy with computer, spent a lot of time computer, but they didn't know what they really need to study. So I think the university, we need to help the students how to solve those problems.
I don't have very clear ideas about how to answer this question. So I'll give you some hints, only, but not a very articulate discourse, I'm afraid. The students of the future are already there. I mean, this year we welcome the first generation of students who were literally born with an iPhone plugged to their baby bottle. I mean, really, this is reality. And whether we like it or not, it changes the relationship to knowledge. In fact, our students are geared to not a knowledge-based society, but a skill-based society. And this is the big challenge to us who are not raised that way. We are raised to respect knowledge and science and not necessarily how to do things. So what it means is that we have to imagine ways to new ways to teach, and Eric Grimson, of course, is right when he says it's a mixture of access to knowledge and changing the teaching approach to the students. But also, it means that the role of the master is changing. Instead of being at the center, giving out his knowledge, the master should surprise the students, should be more inventive and more a raiser of talent more than simply a casket of knowledge, if I may say so. So I think that the impact of technology is forcing us to be inventive, as I said, which is a good thing. But there's no real direct answer to how to meet the needs of the students of the future, because the needs of the students of the future are the needs of the future, and we have to invent also to imagine the jobs of the future. So from my standpoint, some crucial ideas, like very selfishly, for example, I think if I want to live longer, I'm hoping that someone will be able to take care of me. And taking care of me might mean reading to me William Faulkner when I'm blind, or something like that. And so it's not necessarily very technical things that society will need, but we need both. We need science and humanities, medicine and humanities. Thank you.
Good, thank you. So this next question really comes from a preoccupation of my own, and we'll ask Gerard Fouquet, President Carmi, and President El-Misnad to answer this. How should universities of the future balance the need to undertake both applied and foundational research? And how do you think the policies of your research funding agencies will influence that balance?
What is your impression? Why does a young scientist decide to commit his or her life to science? Each researcher in Germany who starts working at a university strives to further foundational research. He or she wants to dig deeper in their field of interest. The outcome, though, might tend more in the one or the other direction. To my mind, you can't and shouldn't try to influence the direction a researcher takes. It should be the outcome of his or her free decision and evolve naturally. I believe, however, that both aspects of research, fundamental and applied, are needed and mutually reinforcing. We can only support the researchers by softly guiding them through the jungle of also administrative burden and lower the obstacles towards a holistic consultancy via service units in our universities. Thus, technology scouts in our research foci at Kiel University are collecting ideas or preliminary proposals and screen them for applicability. Basic research is of high risk. It can come up with high gain too. Basic research may have great failure potential, but it will generate new ideas to be further developed and even drive applied research. As a university president, I therefore need to call out to our government and funding agencies to acknowledge the importance of fundamental research and to continue to provide funding for it. Recent trends, to the contrary, have been for agencies to focus on the commercialization of research results and therefore more on applied research. It's a cul-de-sac, a dead end. Governments and funding agencies must also provide incentives such as tax incentives, efficient patenting, flexible funding, which will promote startups and SMEs that take on the results of applied research. Unfortunately, the opposite holds true, and we are challenged with a massive burden of frames and guidelines which are altogether not helpful with respect to smart ideas and to be carried out for industrial use or transfer into societal demands in time. In sum up, I'm convinced that research funding will create chances and opportunities to drive science to a certain percentage towards either applied or fundamental research. But universities should recall that they have to provide and maintain the freedom of each researcher and therefore also the luck of any unforeseen event which might be used in the future but wasn't planned for it.
Thank you.
I think the two go hand in hand. As basic research feeds applied research and solution to applied research hypotheses are often solved through theoretical understanding of the problem at hand. So if one portion of that loop is not working, then the whole innovation system will not be working. So there should be a balance between the funding. I think mostly for basic and fundamental research, there should be a public funding, while of course for applied research, most of the time it will be kind of public-private funding. Also, I think policies should be changed to make sure that there is a balance between the funding, although it's not difficult, it's not easy, especially when there is a shortage of fund. In this case, normally most of the fund, unfortunately, will go to the applied research. And I think also that maybe what could happen that more integration between basic research and applied research, if it's happening, this will also might help to offer the right funding for that. But I think what I have realized, at least at my university, that people who are working in the basic research, I mean social, either basic sciences or social science and humanities, are different from those who are in applied research. People in applied research are more competitive, more aggressive, always looking for opportunities, trying to grab it, while those in this field are calm, waiting for something to come to them. And that doesn't work because they always play the victim, nobody cares about them, and they're very stubborn. Sorry, maybe that stubborn is not the right word, I don't know. You might not be. But they're very traditional and focused, while the others are moving ahead and they are trying to dig for any hole and penny where is to get it. So I think also the mindset of people who are in basic research should start changing, should start thinking of where is an opportunities, where is chances to do things. But I think you cannot focus on one and leave the others because, as I said, the innovation, the loop of innovation will be broken.
Good. I think that first and foremost, it is very important to ascertain that there is no actually applied and basic or fundamental research, but rather good or bad research. And wonderful inventions and implementations of those inventions came out from purely basic fundamental research, and there are ample examples for that, especially in the pharma, in medicine in general. To my mind, there are two basic reasons why we should consider very seriously looking into so-called, I won't say applied, but at my university we are saying, we are calling it use or need-based basic research. So looking into the needs of the community, of the general community, or the uses that we are anticipating in the future in order to somehow incorporate those needs and ideas into the more fundamental research. First of all, I think we should be very attentive to what is happening beyond the ivory tower. And especially, and this is my take, in state universities are being supported by the government, should be very open to the needs around them. And the second thing is that most, I would say many, if not most of our students, eventually would not end up in academia, would actually end up in companies, in the industry, and I don't think we give them enough tools to really understand what it is necessary in order to survive and succeed in such environments. So I do think, and as we all know, the language is different, the culture is different between academia and industry, and it is very, very important to my mind to somehow bring them together. So all kinds of collaborations with the industry is very important on both ways, coming from the industry to the university and vice versa. People from the industry teaching some courses, not all of them, of course, and the other way around. So we are very much supporting and encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship among our students and also faculties, those that we just mentioned, the ones that are very much occupied in basic research, open them up to new possibilities. And I was very much amazed in how much those people get to be interested in the more real world all of a sudden. And I don't think whether they acquire all those aggressive traits that you need to for that, but they are enjoying it very much. I think also allocating seed money for more applied kind of research in universities is very, very important because it is not very easy to get grants for projects that are at the very beginning. I mean, the industry will come very happily when you have something in hand that can be moved forward very quickly, but they are not as good as funding the very initial stage. So this is, I think, the obligation of the university if they really want to promote this kind of research. And finally, I think more and more industries are going to source out their R&D to the academia. It is getting to be very expensive, lots of expenses on that, and we see it nowadays, and I think this is a good move because having those R&Ds in academia will definitely promote our own interests, and what can I say? Will give us another source of income because it is getting to be very, very tough to get grants for purely basic research. Let's face it, the big money is in the industry. And the big money is coming from there, and we have to find ways to somehow bring together those two entities, the industry and the academia. There is another resource that actually can very much manipulate and determine the direction of a university, and this is the budgeting model in those universities that are being provided mainly by the states. So if there is a research model that based research money mostly on so-called basic fundamental research, this is one thing. But once they switch and go towards the more applicative kind of research, then obviously universities will line up and change their own environment. So it very much depends on what is coming from the outside. It very much depends on the strains that we have financially wise. And as I see it in the near future, we will have to really defend our so-called basic research more and more, because the applied one might take over. Thank you.
Good. Now we're going to finish up with the last of these questions, so we leave time for questions from the audience. And for this last question, I'm calling on Joachim Clotet, President Clotet, President Zhu, and Eric Grimson. And the question is, how can research universities of the future most effectively play a role in an innovation ecosystem?
In the past few decades, universities have been increasingly encouraged by governments and business to devote their energies towards actively translating their knowledge into economic activities, a policy they have often enthusiastically endorsed. This process has increased greatly such that it has, according to some, become as important a university function as research and training. Although for many business, particularly smaller ones, the purpose of collaborating with universities is immediate problem solving. Larger firms will engage in broader dialogue with universities to learn about the directions of future research. Another important role is played through cooperation agreements in the teaching and research areas with national and international universities that have similar features regarding their mission and vision. Today, the interaction between university and companies is vital, and a higher concentration on technological services has been observed. The university needs to focus on promoting and interacting with the productive sector. Their creation responds to the need to improve the performance and effectiveness of higher education institutions on this matter through professional technology transfer managements. Technology transfer may occur through licensing patents or software. From this diagnosis, it's then possible to establish some perspectives for the university-industry interaction in order for local companies to make better use of the research results generated by university. Universities are important contributors to invention for science-based sectors and for innovative products and services at early stages of gestation, and they also educate and train employees with the skills to innovate. The focus of attention by governments and, in fact, by many universities themselves is on issues such patents and licensing, contract and cooperative research, and incubation and entrepreneurial centers. New knowledge is the most important factor in economic growth, and the role of the university in developing new industries and generating regional growth is evident nowadays. The contribution of the entrepreneurial professor, consulting and working closely with businessmen, is currently a new paradigm. Universities provide leadership in formulating common standards needed by innovators to help launch new products and services in dynamic industries. Moreover, innovation involves a team effort, bringing together different ideas and expertise. Commitment and visible support of institution leaders is essential for innovation. Finally, innovation affects everyone in an organization, and to a greater or lesser extent is everyone's responsibility. Thank you.
I think this question quite related with actually with question 5, since the first things I think the government policy quite a lot influence of the university play, if a university can play important role. Take China as an example. The past years, the government really paid more attention for the applied research and the development. So in the past more than 30 years, the economic development really related with that. But today we consider the basic research also very important. In China, take the total R&D, the basic sciences, just get about 5% of total R&D. It's very, very low if we can compare with the situation in the Western world. So we suggest to the government we should increase the budget for basic science, but still, for those top universities in China, most professors, they pay more attention for basic sciences. But if we want to make the research university really play important role for knowledge society, I think certainly we need to encourage the professors pay attention for the applied, for the innovation, ecosystem development. Take the agriculture as well. I'm a plant scientist. A lot of professors at our university come back from the United States, other countries. They are very familiar with the model system, with Arabidopsis, a small weed of Arabidopsis. But in China, agriculture is so important. They couldn't get enough budget from the Arabidopsis. But the rice issue is so important. Actually, they can use such knowledge to study rice. So I think still we need to make the professor know really agriculture problems in China, then find the problem and provide a good proposal for the government, then can get enough budget and then claim important role. So such a balance, keep a balance, is really very important for university and we get more support from the society, from the government. And also just, I agree with Professor Marti just mentioned, we need to establish more link with the private sector or the industrial capacity. In China, actually, it's new things. Originally, professor in university, they never linked with the industrial community. But now we gradually consider it so important. Most very important, foreign company now, they set the R&D sector in China. They linked with a lot of university, academic institutions. It's really provide the opportunity. We learn those things, how to get contact with them. But besides those things, I think I should mention for research university, sometimes we frequently, I think, neglect the role of humanity. Actually, for universities, play such an important role for innovation ecosystem. the humanity, social science is so important today. Also take life science as an example. When we consider in China, we carry a lot of program for stem cell, GM food. The society, a lot of people don't understand such things. So we need help from the professor, working humanity, working social science, law school, sociology, psychology, and those departments get together, help natural scientists understand why we should consider those things, and make the public understand such new science programs or projects, why we should carry out such a project. And can build a good environment for science and technology development. Also for university, research university, if we play more important role, I think today, in the last several questions, we also mentioned international. Now the lot of research projects really international. UNESCO or UN or other international organizations, they organize those big issues. The research university should play important role in such big project and influence those research. Then we can, get really those research results can influence the government policy for especially international level. Thank you.
Chancellor Grimson.
So I'll remind you, the question is, how can research universities of the future most effectively play a role in an innovation ecosystem? And this sounds like such an MIT question. I want to assure you, I did not bribe Martha to ask me this question. The answer is clearly going to depend on the local details of a university and the surrounding community. But I'd like to offer 3 elements that I think universities consider and how they can play a role in the innovation ecosystem. The first is I would encourage universities to create a meritocracy of ideas. Junior faculty, graduate students, undergraduates can often have insights that are unfettered by conventional approaches. And I would encourage you to think about infrastructure that encourages them or at least doesn't constrain them. Now, they're also often wrong, but that's okay. By acknowledging that ideas can come from anywhere, you create this meritocracy and it changes the way you think about things. This may mean you have to rethink your intellectual property policies to encourage innovation. One of my favorites is to think about building innovation spaces. At MIT, we call them sandboxes, spaces where students, undergraduate, graduate, postdocs, faculty can come together to explore ideas. We provide the toys for free, but we encourage people to think about the ideas, to generate them, and we'll worry later on about how to make them flow out into the marketplace. But create that ecosystem, I think, is really valuable. Second thing I'd say, and I said it in response to an earlier question, is leverage local strengths. To be blunt, it's really hard to compete with Silicon Valley in web-based technology. Frankly, it's really hard to compete with Kendall Square in Cambridge around biotech. You can do it, but it takes a lot of energy to do that. But there are going to be areas of local interest where you've got that opportunity, whether it's around a resource, it's around a local piece of infrastructure. And 2 examples that come to mind for me, there's a wonderful group in Singapore that looks at infectious diseases at NUS that really builds on the fact that those diseases are there, they need to tackle them. Or Richard, to go back to our roots, there's a great crop development program at Saskatoon because it's so important to that part of the economy. So figure out what's the local thing you can leverage, and then you'll be able to take advantage of that. The third and last one is I would really encourage universities to provide both curricular and extracurricular opportunities for your students to experience and explore innovation. Hackathons, business plan competitions, targeted internships with local industrial partners, using real-world problems in your classrooms. And we've heard great discussion and defense of the traditional arts, and they're there, but you can still bring local problems, real-world problems into the classroom are going to be a great way to do it. And one of the reasons I think this is really good is great students with great ideas are essential to that ecosystem. And if you start them on campus by providing the spaces, providing the access to faculty, providing the opportunities, they're going to stick around. They're going to like it so much that when they leave and they walk out the door and they start that company, they're going to stay in the area, and that can be tremendously valuable, not only to encourage that ecosystem, but for the local system as well. And those would be my 3 thoughts.
Good. Thank you very much. And now, we have an opportunity, about 20 minutes of time, to receive questions from anywhere, this room, the Truro campus, and people who have been contacting us by email. And I would suggest that if you have a particular person you want to answer the question, you name the country that they come from, and they can respond. If not, we'll see who jumps first to respond. So, as I understand it, we've got people at some kinds of microphones here who are ready to ask a question. Is that right?
Good morning. So this is an open question to all panelists here. Global university rankings now affect student and faculty decisions. How do you address these rankings through your strategy, leader decisions, or if at all?
Okay, so here we have a question about the ranking systems that we've just seen coming out in our newspapers that give a number to our universities, 30th, 5th, 200th and 44th. How are your universities coping with these rankings? So anybody who wants to can raise a hand. We'll start with MIT.
Well, I was just volunteered by this entire table to answer that question. Look, the facetious answer is we pay no attention to them. And of course you don't believe that. But I think it's really important to focus on what are the rankings telling you about the strengths of your university and not to get caught up in the rankings. So earlier this morning, a group of us were talking about how impact of a faculty member is much more important than number of publications. And rankings, unfortunately, will do things. Some of them will look at citation counts, but others will simply count number of publications, or they'll count other things that really are secondary. And sadly, we've seen some institutions play games. They will play games to try and boost their rankings. So my response to the question, I guess, was how do we think about it? At my institution, yes, we look at them. We're often amused that I can't resist this. In one of the international rankings, we were rated, fortunately, the #1 university in the world, but in the American ranking, we were ranked 7th. So I'm not quite certain what it says. My point to the answer is think about what the elements of the rankings tell you about places where you can strengthen, but don't get caught up in the numbers. And that really will let students then figure out what is it about your institution that is a great draw, why they want to be there, and not worry about am I going to 1 or 5 or 25 or 200.
Does somebody from somewhere else in the world want to add a comment about rankings? Yes.
The ranking, I think, really make a lot of university presidents in this world very nervous sometimes.
Another sleepless night.
But when I was a president of a big university, personally, I think I didn't not take too much care about that, because I think every country have their special conditions and traditions. Actually, ranking couldn't make those lot of things very clear. Say, you can compare the SCI papers, but for example, our university, we're very strong with the humanity and the social science. They didn't publish SCI papers, but for those universities, mainly just for natural science, engineering, they really more professors publish those papers. So I think still depends on the university leadership. We should reasonably consider those things. Of course, the government always take too much attention about that. They use that to judge the university is good or not so good. So, but anyway, if we guided by those ranking, I think we lost our way, I think. So I think, well, we need to know that, but we still should, according our university tradition and university target, to make our things. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Yes,
No,
Dr.
it's fine actually, but I was just going to say that ranking is a good business for ranking companies. And it's a headache for universities, especially, universities in developing countries trying to build themselves, trying to achieve something, and they are compared with MIT, with the hundreds of publications and all of that. It's tough, but it's something we have to live with. Even at Qatar University, we have a committee called How to Improve Qatar University Ranking in the System, because it's became a national pride and a political pressure. And some universities will do everything to come with that political pressure, even unethical way of going behind all of that. But as I said, it's like globalization. You have to live with it, and you have to find a way to deal with it.
Good. All right, now we'll look for another question.
So this isn't for anyone in particular, but it is impressive that 3 of the people on the panel are women, yet overall, women remain underrepresented in senior university roles globally. So why is this, and how do we support the development and growth of women leaders in post-secondary education?
Rivka, maybe you want to jump on that, and then Professor Al-Misnad.
So I've been briefly alluding to the fact that this was one of my achievements, and I dare say that was mine, not a group achievement, because it was practically against all odds, even in Israel that had the first female prime minister years ago. Well, this is a worldwide issue. The promotion of women in the academia, the obstacles that women face in academia, by the way, not only academia, but we're dealing now with the academia, are tremendous. And what's really frustrating is that there is a lot of research about this issue going back for many, many years. In fact, the first research done was in MIT, by the way. And it seems like it is very similar in all over the world, in many, many countries. But we know what is the problem. We don't actually do a lot in order to counteract it. I think it is about time that this kind of issues will be tackled on national basis. Because, when it happens in individual organizations, then it is up to the president or to other major central figures, and once they are gone, it is over. In all places where different kinds of programs were initiated, once people that were not really very vocal or very or were not identified with, were gone, those programs disappeared. So it should be on a national level. It should come from the either the academia, the regulators, bodies of the academia, or nation academies, should come with sets of recommendations, and they are not something beyond comprehension. Those recommendations are very simple. We have already identified the obstacles that women in academia face. There are at the postdoctorate period, there are at the beginning to the entrance to the academia, and then there is the leaking pipeline during the period, the first years, that somehow 2 clocks are operating at the same time, the biological clock and the tenure clock on those places where tenure is a central issue. So what I can say is that I think we were, relatively speaking, it is too early to actually evaluate it, but we were very successful in actually identifying or defining those measures that should be taken in universities in order to promote women throughout their career. And they are all merit-based. We are not in any way suggesting to do any kind of affirmative action. This is not the case. It is a case about looking for those best women that can easily and are easily competing with males and give them the right, friendly, supportive environment that they need to do, because for now and for the foreseeable future, I cannot see how women are going to abandon or lose their main caregiving kind of career, second career in their life, either for kids when they are little, or for their parents and other family members when they are older. So I think this is a very important issue. It is unfortunately a neglected issue, and it should be very boldly treated with in all organizations.
President Al-Misnad.
Yes, I think in Qatar we have the problem of how to encourage our young men to pursue their higher education, to take advantage of the possibilities there. For example, at Qatar University, 75% of our population are women. So women outnumber men in medicine and engineering and all of that. So, but I think when they graduate, women are still not confident to take that opportunities and push themselves up in their career, although the doors open for them, all the way. And also, for example, when we, at Qatar University, when we advertise for a position for a teaching assistant who should finish master and PhD and join the academia, out of 10 people who interview, there will be like 2 men and the rest will be women. So when we see a Qatari man coming to apply, we are really so happy that there are. So it's, I think it's different from one country to another, but we have the opposite situation.
Good. All right, do we have another question?
Well, this actually comes from Tom Treves, the President Emeritus of Dalhousie University, and he asked the panelists to discuss the role of the university president in facilitating campus engagement with transformational changes you've discussed, some of which may be very disruptive to campus traditions and expectations.
Good, so how do you handle change on the campus when you're trying to implement some of the new things that we have talked about today? What's the president's role in helping with that change process? Who wants to speak to that? So since he's not a president but a chancellor, he'll venture forth here.
I'll take a run at it. It's a great question because traditions are important, cultures are important, but the world does change. And my short answer is, I think one way to do it is to try and do it grassroots up. You try and get your students to understand why things have changed, where there's new opportunities to make those changes, why it's going to be better for them. If you can bring the students along, the faculty will follow, sorry, but the faculty will follow and you'll be able to make that change. From the top down, even when it's really important, even when you're obliged legally or otherwise to do it, it's really hard to make happen. So for me, it's get the students to agree this is a good way to make change, and it'll happen.
Mary Christine?
I totally agree with Eric Crimson, because the difficulty is not to make the students change, because they are the ones who bring about changes, but it's to make faculty accept changes. Even though I don't want to sound too much to favor youth, but I think that's the truth.
Anyone else have a few words of advice on this? Okay, we'll go to our next question.
Okay, this question is for Dr. Grimson, and it's from Marianne White of the Faculty of Chemistry. So she says, we know you're busy, so we hope you have found your time here useful. And did you learn anything specific that you will take back with you to MIT?
Boy, that's a tough question, especially since I came in late last night. But I will answer it generally. This is now my second time to visit Halifax in the last year and to Dalhousie. And I suspect, like my colleagues, every time you visit a new institution, you get a sense of a different flavor. And that flavor can come in many ways. So for me, it's, in talking to colleagues here, it's getting a sense of the pride and passion they have for Dal, as I understand you pronounce it. I'm mispronouncing it when I say Dalhousie, but the pride and passion you have around Dal, the fact that you have something to contribute that will change the way you not only think about your problems, but perhaps you can change the way we think about problems elsewhere. So what I'm taking away is being reminded, as I am regularly, that while I'm fortunate to be at a great institution, there are great institutions everywhere, and being respectful of what they can bring to the table is reminding me to look for partners around the world, which we'll continue to do.
Good.
So this question was emailed in by Randy Barkhouse, and he asks, university presidents are sometimes singled out as promoters of the corporatization of their institutions. Panel members have already alluded to advantages and dangers of corporatization without using the term. Example, applied versus basic research. Do you view increased corporatization as inevitable and desirable?
So this is a question that has us go into the world of whether the university is becoming more like a corporation, and is this a positive development or not as positive a development? And I see some faces that have question marks on the face. So they may be challenging the very notion of corporatization of the university. Does anybody want to speak to this?
I'm one to saying that I'm a professor of American literature, and I remain a professor of literature even when I'm a president. It means that even though I'm dealing with budget and money and fundraising, etc., I should never lose sight of the fact that we're here for the students, for providing the students with a good education, good research, and a future. That's my answer.
It's a good answer. Does anybody else want to address that question?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
Well, this is something that I hear very frequently coming from the humanities and social sciences, especially from the humanities. And there is some truth to that, and it is a matter of really having to survive in a very harsh environment of lack of resources, financial resources, and be very inventive and very innovative in running a university in a way that will cater for the basic mandate of the university to produce knowledge and disseminate it in a very appropriate way. And on the other hand, to cope with all the necessities that a modern university needs in order to more than just survive. Because, technology, scientific research and technologies nowadays are extremely, extremely expensive. The recruitment of a young faculty nowadays in physics or in the what we call the wet kind of sciences can go up as to $1.5 million and $1 million and $2 million easily. And you do need to find ways to counteract this kind of issues. And in a way, we are getting to be a little like corporates. And it is a huge challenge to find the the midway, okay? To run your university in a very efficient, effective way on one hand, and on the other hand, try to promote those values that you don't want to lose, and it is easy, very easy to lose. And on the third hand, if there is a third hand, I think universities should, or at least faculty should, be aware of the fact that this is a world that demands accountability, and we need to be accountable. And even faculty in those fields that inherently accountability is not something that is something very known to the trade, should be accountable. And this is something that is very difficult to bring through as a message. And I think we should do it in a very compelling way, not to insult people, but still, this is the reality.
Good. Do we have another question?
The next question is, when government and industry are not addressing the needs of local societies, do universities share a responsibility to act with vision? To no one in particular.
Yes, so I'll rephrase the question. So when, if I understand this correctly, when governments and industries are not addressing important local questions, how can the university do that? How can the university come forward to address the questions that are not being addressed by other parts of society?
Martha,
Yeah, you want to try?
I'll take a run at it, and I'm going to play a trick that you've probably seen students do. I'm going to rephrase the question. You know, if you'd asked it this way. Because I think when it's a local issue, one has to rely on the local government to be thinking about it. But I think there's a variation on the question which I want to take a run at, and that is, I think there is a role for the university to be taking the long view in what's important locally. And I want to wrap this back to some of the earlier discussion around foundational research. We don't know where the next big innovation is going to come from, but we know that investing with a long view in basic research may lead to that. You know, my favorite example is the atomic clock. It's created to measure the collisions of atoms in a particular physical thing, but that's what makes GPS run today, 50 years later, because somebody invested in it. So what does it have to do with the question, now that you've forgotten the question? I think the university can take a long view about what might help with the local situation. If it's really a local situation, the government needs to do it. But thinking about, here's an area of importance to Nova Scotia, and here's how the university can be investing now for things that may pay off 20 years from now, is something where the university can take a leadership role.
Good. Do we have another question? Thank you very much.
So this question comes from Chris Moore, the Dean of Science at Dalhousie University, and he asks, how should a president balance top-down direction of the university with facilitation of the faculty's aspirations?
So how does a president take their leadership top-down and balance that with faculties, the different faculties' desires, aspirations? So how does the president capture those aspirations of the faculties and work with them, in a sense, and how much should come from the top and how much comes from the faculty's base?
I don't know, I'll try, but I think the best thing is he have to be political savvy to make it feel that it's theirs, not his. And it had to go through a lot of mechanism. I mean, it won't work if it's not bottom up. So you have to find a way to make it their own. I don't know. It's difficult.
Does anybody else have any thoughts about this? How you work best with your faculties?
I would try to phrase it. Grassrooting, the bottoming down, the
Bottom up.
the top down.
Ah.
Grassrooting, the top down. Find a way actually to bring, as I think Ari said before, to mobilize the faculty, especially, by the way, young faculty and students. Young faculty are much more open to new ideas, to innovations. Obviously, you cannot go over the heads of deans and heads of departments, and I agree very much with Sheikha. You're very politically savvy. As Mr. Kissinger said at the time, you know, after being a university president, he could occupy every political position in the world. But really mobilizing young faculty and students and bring them and actually promote them as your secondary agents for your ideas, something very instrumental.
Does anybody else have any thoughts about this? How you've worked with your deans and the desires that are coming from their faculties to make things happen? Okay, we'll turn to another question then.
Okay, this is for anyone who wishes to comment. It's from Rick Williams, who is a former faculty member. Is the freedom of faculty to choose their research topics a luxury the modern university can no longer afford?
I must point out for our panelists that this person is presently in a very important role in our provincial government, and we appreciate him very much. So you can answer it with that knowledge.
I think you can answer this question by true or false. It's true. I mean, it had to happen.
Other people want to address this question?
I would be more reserved to say true, because if one of your colleagues wants to study Dante, is it a luxury you can't afford? I don't think so.
So do we have the luxury to study, do our professors have the luxury to study what they want to? Or should this somehow be determined by other instances, other forces?
Martha?
Yes.
Let me take a run at it by saying, I mean, the question's a little tough because, you know, deciding you're going to be a kerosene scientist seems a little odd to do in a day when that's no longer used very much. But I guess what it suggests is there needs to be a balance, because somebody may be exploring an idea that, again, is going to lead to something 20 years from now that you haven't thought about. So I would suggest, as long as a faculty member can defend it, can articulate why he or she believes it's important, and can find ways to support it. I mean, just assuming that the provincial or federal government will say, yes, we want to support it, you know, you have to be willing to live with that battle. But I would look for the balance. You need to meet society's needs, you need to adjust to what our students want, but you also have to be looking to the future. And every once in a while, that's going to be off exploring something that doesn't make a lot of sense now, but may. So you have to be able to defend it.
Good. I think we can take another question.
Okay. This is actually for our lovely facilitator today. Someone asks, do you think Dalhousie needs a tech park to keep students in the province?
Oh. A tech park. So this is a very interesting question for me, because there is one president here whose university has a quite amazing tech park located right next to it, and that is the president from Brazil. And I want to ask him, so I'm going to ask the question, pass the question over. Do you think having Tech Puc which is such an amazing situation. It's very hard for me to describe this, but I believe they took what was an Air Force base. Is that right? It was an Army base originally, and converted it into a technology park. And do you think this has been an attractor for students? Do you think students come to your university because of Tech Puk?
Of course. It's a great effort that our university has been doing and is doing now to attract some firms of computer science engineering. And this practice, or these firms, choose the best students of engineering, computer science, in order to work with them. And in the classroom, they have the theory, and in the technical park, they have the practice with the best firms and industries all over the world. That means an effort, not only by the president, but also of deans and professors of the other faculties, in order to attract, once again, the best firms. And it is an idea exposed or well worked by Richard Barton when he explains what an entrepreneurial university is. An entrepreneurial university means the effort of each professor, of each member of the university to improve the status of the university, to improve their quality, not only by the university, but the university working with society in order to improve the level of well-being and development of the region and development at the end of the country.
Good. And I think we will now end the questions from the audience, I regret to say, because our time is getting closer. But we wanted to close this discussion by asking each one of our panel members to give one piece of advice to our new president. So we'll begin with our president, our vice chancellor from Botswana.
Thank you very much. That's a tough question, because whatever advice you give, you're really talking about something that worked yesterday, and whether it will work in future is another matter. But before I answer it, let me invite all of you who are seated here. Say, imagine yourselves as somewhere in Botswana in a tribal community. You are about to install a new chief. And in our country, when you install a new chief, the advice you give is that the tribe you are about to lead does not belong to you, it belongs to your predecessor. Your task is what type and what size of tribe will you hand over to your successor. However, on the serious note, I think leadership, madam, is about sometimes taking hard decisions. But on the other hand, in universities, as we all know, consultation, whatever form it takes, whether through recognized structures like academic boards and senates, is very important and is an integral part of the university culture. Consult as appropriate, listen, and hear every voice, even the smallest voice in the community. Gems of wisdom sometimes come from unexpected quarters. So, Mr. President, it just means for me to say congratulations once again, and we wish you the very best for the future and the future of DAL. Thank you.
to always bear in mind the relevance and priority that must be granted to the mission and vision of the university, and in particular to the academic staff, the students and their families as well, so that may work together and join forces to increase its disciplinary focus and promote active citizenship. Thus, the university will contribute to sustainable development, well-being, and the realization of human rights, including gender equity. All of this demands commitment to the quality and efficiency of the university, as well as to the development and progress, in this case, of the city of Halifax, the province of Nova Scotia, and prosperous Canada. In a nutshell, working as a team, having a solid foundation in dedication, trust, the will to innovate and succeed. It is obvious that the university aims to prepare students not just for careers, but for well-founded, fulfilling, civically engaged lives. All of this, as you know, demands commitment. And let me say, dear President, on this relevant occasion, that nothing great has ever been achieved without a great deal of enthusiasm. Thank you.
First of all, I should take this opportunity to thank the President invite me visit your university, such a beautiful city, beautiful university. Since I visited Canada many times, but I never touched this land. It's really supplied me so beautiful, so good, everything here. So also I'm very happy yesterday I know this university had about 900 Chinese students. It's also really surprised me. So my advice to the President, welcome you, visit China at your convenience. Because China have so many universities, we are looking for more international collaboration. Vice versa, I think their university also looking for more international collaboration. Also in China, every year, since the higher education system expanded quite a lot, but every year we still have about, I think, more than 3 million graduates from high school, no chance going to university. I think your visit to China will make more Chinese young people know your university. You can attract more elite Chinese students come to this beautiful city and a beautiful university. Thank you.
Thank you.
To conclude this panel discussion with all its stimulating questions and answers, I wish you, my dear colleague, President Florison, for your new office, good fortune, and the cardinal virtues for public office laid down by Cicero in his De Officiis, Prudentia, Justitia, Temperantia et Fortitudo, prudence, justice, temperance, and courage. From my experience, the leadership of a university needs one uppermost quality, a friendly heart. You just have to love them all. The people who work and learn in your university, the weird entity a university is by nature, and the research in all its shapes and colors. Throughout the last 8 years, I have learned one thing at least. There is no top-down in a university. This was a question from the audience. Wild, boundless, outrageous ideas reign, and savage heads are legion. While this is strain for the leader, it is the one thing that provides your university with fresh ideas and continuous renewal. These wonderful colleagues are to be won over, convinced, and engaged, and by night. Rejoice in the disobedience of your staff. They have known the university longer than you, and they have to bear the outcome of your work. I personally wish for us, for the universities of Dal and CIU, a continuing, fruitful, and even strategic partnership, above all in the marine science and life sciences, for many years to come. And thank you again for inviting Dr. Bosch and me, Grescat, Dalhousie University, and Florian.
As was said before, being president of a university is about teamwork. However, in the end, it is the president who is making decisions. So my piece of advice would be, take decisions, don't be afraid of making mistakes. And I have a little quotation for you that I'm ready to share. So since we're in Canada, I can first read it in French and then I'll translate it into English. It's by Georges Canguilhem, who was both a medical doctor, a physician, and a philosopher. L'erreur n'est pas une faiblesse, mais une force. La rêverie n'est pas une fumée, mais un feu. So it's about error is not a weakness, but a strength. Dreaming is not fume, but fire. This is my little piece of advice.
Very nice.
Well, this question reminds me of a joke of a newly coming university president asking for advice from the retiring one. And he says, in fact, a final advice. And he says, in fact, I have put 2 envelopes in your drawer, and this is my advice. Some people won't know the joke. So he says, in the first major crisis, open the first envelope, and the second envelope. So unavoidably, the first crisis comes, and he opens the first envelope and he says, blame it on your predecessor. So this is what he does. He just blames it on his predecessors and everything is fine. And then the second major crisis comes and he opens the second envelope and it says, prepare 2 envelopes. So fortunately, I still have my 2 envelopes still unopened in my drawers. I would make 2 advices, actually 2 practical ones, and I'm very serious about them both. One is, it is general, but it is very important for a president, I think. Beware of the send button on the internet, beware. Before you push this button, really be very careful. And the other one is in a more serious accord. Really don't let things get lost in translation. Because every now and then you have those great ideas and thoughts, and you even manage to somehow, make people understand, or at least you think understand what you mean. But then later on, if you don't really see to it that they are being appropriately implemented, then you find yourself really lost. So don't lose things in translation. And finally, like you said last night, coming from your little girl, this is an awesome experience. Thank you.
First, let me say I think the new president doesn't need a lot of advice. He has so much experience and he has been in administration for so long that I'm sure he will be a great leader and he will really push Dalhousie University to more progress and growth. But I think, from my experience as well, I think the best advice that I think a great leader or a good leader is as good as his team. So it's very important that he build a strong team around him who believe in the vision and the mission and empower them to help him and to move the university with him to reach the vision. The second advice, I think somebody told me that your motto that the first 100 days will be listening, but I think you have to listen beyond that.
I think my advice is going to be very similar to Marie-Christine's, but I'm not going to say it nearly as eloquently, and I'm only going to do it in one language. Richard, my advice to you, in short, and then I'll give you a slightly longer version, be bold, but grow a thick skin. The world of higher education is changing dramatically. We've heard it today. Online tools are going to disrupt delivery. You need to train students as future innovators. That means you have to think about new ways of structuring both space and curricula. Modern science and technology problems are increasingly interdisciplinary, which changes the way you think about traditional departments. And you've got to make all of these changes in increasingly tighter financial constraints. So I think you need to pick your spots. In my perspective, and it's easy to say, harder to live with, cautious, thorough, and deliberative approaches are wonderful, but by the time you complete the process, the problem has changed. At MIT, the average time for a faculty member to give you 10 reasons why you can't do something is about 50 nanoseconds. But the average time to get them to give you a great new idea is yet to be measured because we don't have the first example. And that's unfair to faculty who will give you great ideas, but you have to listen, but you cannot bring them in. So Richard, my advice is pick your spots and be bold. And yes, there will be the criticism, but as long as you're listening, and as long as you're willing to experiment and acknowledge that the experiment might not have been perfect, but you'll move on to the next experiment, you'll make those quantum leaps that are going to make Dal an even greater place than it already is.
You know, I can hardly bear to end this discussion. This has been really rich and really, I think, gratifying for those of us who've been here. But we do have to end it, and before we move on to other installation events that await us, I want to thank our panel members who came from very far away and who have very busy jobs for coming here to be with us and sharing their ideas. I want to thank all of you who asked questions, and I want to thank this audience and our president who have been such attentive listeners. And finally, I want to thank a wonderful team of people that stretched across the university from the international relations people to people in the president's office to people in communications, literally across the university, who made this event and the other installation events possible. And none of it would have been as well done as it's been without them. So I look forward to seeing you all this afternoon at the installation ceremony for our new president, and I wish you all be well. And now please join me in thanks one more time.